I've spent over 3 decades in medicine, and if there's one thing that's been drilled into me by patient after patient, it's this. Your birthday has almost nothing to do with how old you actually are. I've treated people in their 60s who move like they're already gone, and I've treated people pushing 80 who could outwalk, outlift, and outthink. People half their age. The gap between those two groups isn't random, and it isn't rigged by genetics the way most people assume. It comes down to a short list of specific abilities. Abilities that quietly reveal exactly what's happening inside your body long before a diagnosis ever shows up on paper. Today, I'm walking you through 8 of them. 8 markers that doctors, researchers, and longevity scientists increasingly agree are some of the clearest windows we have into how someone is actually aging, not on the calendar, but in their cells, their brain, their muscles, and their nervous system. Some of these will surprise you. A couple of them sound almost too simple to matter, and that's exactly why most people ignore them until it's too late. Stick with me through this list, because the ones near the end are the ones I think about most when I'm trying to predict which of my patients will still be independent, sharp, and thriving a decade from now. Before we get into it, I want you to do something. Drop a comment and tell me your age, and tell me one physical thing you can still do that makes you feel proud or alive or just plain capable. I read these, every one of them. And I promise you, somebody scrolling through the comments later today needs to hear that it's possible to feel strong and sharp at 70, at 75, at 80 and beyond. Your story might be exactly what convinces them. Let's start from the bottom of the list and work our way up to the marker. I consider the single most important thing on this entire countdown. The 8th sign is deceptively simple. Can you get up off the floor without using your hands? No pushing off the ground, no crawling to a chair to hoist yourself upright. No using your knees as a ladder. Just sit down on the floor and stand back up, using nothing but your legs, your core, and your balance. It sounds like a party trick, but researchers in Brazil tracked a large group of older adults for 6 years and found something startling. The people who needed to use both their hands and their knees to get up off the ground were dying at a rate several times higher than the people who could do it unassisted. Not slightly higher, several times higher. That's the kind of gap that usually only shows up with things like smoking or uncontrolled diabetes, and yet here it was, hiding inside something as mundane as sitting down and standing up. Here's why the single movement carries so much weight. Somewhere around your 70s, your body starts shedding what are called fast-twitch muscle fibers at a much faster rate than before. These are the fibers responsible for quick, explosive movement, the kind that catches you when you stumble, the kind that stops a trip from becoming a fall, and a fall from becoming a fracture. And falls, plainly, are one of the leading causes of injury-related death in older adults. So when someone can't rise off the floor without support, they're not failing a flexibility test. They're showing you in real time that the very fibers designed to save them from a fall are already starting to disappear. Here's why this single movement carries so much weight. Somewhere around your 70s, your body starts shedding what are called fast-twitch muscle fibers at a much faster rate than before. These are the fiber S responsible for quick, explosive movement, the kind that catches you when you stumble, the kind that stops a trip from becoming a fall and a fall from becoming a fracture. And falls, plainly, are one of the leading causes of injury-related death in older adults. So when someone can't rise off the floor without support, they're not failing a flexibility test. They're showing you, in real time, that the very fibers designed to save them from a fall are already starting to disappear. I had a patient, a woman in her mid-70s, who came to see me after her second fall in a single year. She couldn't get off the floor without grabbing furniture. We built a simple program around her, floor-to-stand practice a few times a week, resistance band training, and daily walks. 8 months later, she was rising off the ground smoothly, hadn't fallen. Once, and told me something I still think about, she said she'd gotten her confidence back. The confidence wasn't vanity, it was survival, dressed up as pride. If you want to protect this ability, start practicing sitting down on the floor and standing back up 2 or 3 times a week, without leaning on anything. Pair it with basic leg strength work, and don't overlook vitamin D deficiency in that one nutrient has been linked to faster muscle loss in older adults, and it's one of the most common, most fixable gaps I see in my own patients' blood work. Now to the 7th sign, and this one is almost comically simple on the surface. Can you stand on one leg for 10 seconds with your eyes open? It feels like something a gym teacher would test you on in the 4th grade, but a large study out of the UK involving well over 1,000 adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s found that people who couldn't hold a 10-second single-leg stand had a dramatically higher risk of dying from any cause within the following decade. Not a small increase, a number large enough that it should make anyone stop and actually try the test right now, wherever you're sitting or standing. What's happening when you balance on one leg is more complicated than it looks. Your cerebellum, the part of your brain responsible for coordination, is firing rapid, layered signals. Your inner ear is talking to your eyes, your joints, and your spine all at the same time, correcting your posture dozens of times a second without you ever noticing. After a certain age, this entire system starts to degrade unless you actively use it. Think of it like a set of phone lines that go quiet. If nobody's calling, the wires eventually fray. The fix here is almost embarrassingly easy to apply. Stand on one leg while you brush your teeth. Do it morning and night, 30 seconds per side. Once that gets easy, try it with your eyes closed, which forces your brain to rely even more heavily on those internal balance signals. Some research also points to magnesium playing an important role in how well your nerves and muscles communicate. And a large share of older adults are running low on it without realizing. Sign number 6 moves us from balance to endurance. Can you walk a quarter mile, about 4 city blocks, without needing to stop and rest? Researchers following thousands of older adults found that how far and how steadily someone could walk was one of the most reliable predictors of survival they measured, in some cases more telling than cholesterol, numbers, or blood pressure readings. People who couldn't manage that quarter mile without stopping had a notably higher death rate over the following years. The biology behind this is worth understanding, because it explains why walking matters so much more than people assume. As you move into your 70s, your cardiovascular system gradually loses what's called aerobic capacity, essentially, your body's efficiency at delivering oxygen to working muscle. At the same time, the mitochondria inside your muscle cells, the tiny structures that generate your energy, start to decline in both number and performance. But here's the part that should give you hope. Regular walking actually triggers your body to build new mitochondria. It's one of the few truly reliable anti-aging mechanisms we understand well, and it costs nothing. My advice is to walk outdoors rather than on a treadmill whenever you can. Uneven terrain forces your brain to stay engaged with your environment in a way a flat conveyor belt never will. Start with 4 blocks. Once that feels easy, add one more the following week. Small, steady progress compounds faster than people expect. The 5th marker is one that catches almost everyone off guard the first time I explain it. Can you carry on a real conversation while doing something physical at the same time? Walking and talking. Cooking while chatting with someone in the kitchen. Gardening while listening and responding to the radio. This is called dual tasking, and it turns out to be a surprisingly sensitive test of brain health. Researchers studying cognitive decline have documented something called stop walking when talking, where a person literally has to stop moving in order to speak. That pattern shows up alongside measurable accelerated cognitive decline. The reason makes sense once you understand what dual tasking actually demands. It pulls simultaneously on your prefrontal cortex, your working memory, and the parts of your brain responsible for planning movement. When all of that can run at once smoothly, it's a sign your brain's different regions are still communicating efficiently. When it starts to break down, that's often one of the earliest measurable signs of neurological aging, showing up well before anything obvious. Picture your brain as a city with different neighborhoods handling different jobs, all connected by roads. Dual tasking is rush hour. It tests whether those roads are wide and well-maintained enough to handle real traffic without gridlock. A brain that sails through that rush hour is a brain that's still, in a very real sense, richly connected. To train this, intentionally stack a physical task with a mental one. Walk while doing simple math in your head. Try a new recipe while listening to something that requires attention, like a podcast in a language you're learning. Garden while catching up with someone you love on the phone. And if you're looking for a nutritional piece to pair with this, omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, appear to support the protective sheath around your neural connections, keeping the signal between brain regions clean and fast. Before we go further, if any of this is landing for you, if you're recognizing yourself or someone you love in this list, do me a favor and hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. I put real time into digging through the research behind everything I'm sharing because I genuinely believe people deserve to know what their bodies are still capable of. We're only halfway through, and the next few markers are, in my opinion, the ones that matter most. Sign number 4 is one that almost nobody in mainstream health conversations talks about. Can you read ordinary print without needing magnification? Your visual sharpness isn't just about comfort or convenience. It turns out to be a real predictor of cognitive health. Research involving thousands of older adults found that those with uncorrected vision problems experienced cognitive decline at roughly 2.5 times the rate of those with normal or corrected vision. To be clear, needing reading glasses isn't a red flag on its own. That's simply common and easily managed. What matters more is the underlying cellular health of the eye itself, the density of the macula, the clarity of the lens, the condition of the optic nerve. These aren't just eye structures. They're a direct window into the health of your central nervous system. As people move past 70, the eyes typically lose a significant portion of their light sensitivity, partly from the pupil narrowing and the lens naturally yellowing with age. Retinal cells lose some of their ability to regenerate. Inflammation, which quietly damages aging tissue throughout the body, plays a central role in conditions like macular degeneration. And these eye conditions are increasingly linked to faster cognitive decline through mechanisms researchers are still working to fully map out. The practical steps here are refreshingly concrete. Lutein and zeaxanthin, two plant compounds found in dark, leafy greens like kale and spinach, have been shown to meaningfully lower the risk of macular degeneration. Pair those greens with zinc, which helps deliver those nutrients directly to retinal tissue, and try cutting your screen. Exposure in the hour before bed, since blue light appears to add oxidative stress to the retina right when it should be winding down. Eating dark greens regularly isn't just good general advice, it's a direct investment in both your eyes and your brain. The third sign brings us into memory. Can you recall a short list of items half an hour after hearing them? A friend asks you to grab 4 things from the store. 30 minutes pass, you haven't written anything down, and you can still name all 4 without hesitation. Neuroscientists call this delayed verbal recall, and it's one of the earliest, most sensitive indicators of hippocampal health, the hippocampus being the brain region most responsible for forming new memories. When this ability starts slipping, it's often part of why some older adults describe life feeling flatter or less vivid, even when nothing dramatic has actually changed in their circumstances. But here's the encouraging part. This system isn't simply wearing down on a fixed, unchangeable schedule. It responds strongly to stimulation, novelty, and genuine emotional engagement. When you can still feel real anticipation when an upcoming trip, a dinner with friends, or even learning something new genuinely lights you up inside, that's a sign your brain is still actively projecting forward in time. Researchers sometimes call this future-oriented cognition, and it's tied closely to resilience against depression, slower cognitive aging, and even reduced mortality risk in long-term studies. This isn't just a personality trait, it's neurochemistry. The circuits that drive motivation, attention, and even how quickly you move are wired through dopamine. And when that signaling weakens with age, it tends to show up as apathy, slower movement, and pulling back from daily life. The good news is that these pathways stay remarkably responsive to what you do. New experiences, learning a skill, travel, social connection, even simple goal setting can reactivate that dopamine activity. This is why a bit of routine keeps you stable, but a bit of novelty, applied consistently, is genuinely restorative. Try scheduling something to look forward to every single week, no matter how small. A new recipe, a short outing, a class, a phone call you've been putting off. The size of the event matters far less than the anticipation leading up to it. Pair that with regular aerobic activity, which appears to boost the sensitivity of your dopamine receptors and support your overall neurotransmitter balance. That same thread, the ability to still feel forward-looking excitement, connects directly to what I'd rank as sign number 2. Do you still feel genuinely motivated and engaged with your life, or has the future started to feel like something to get through rather than look forward to? When the system deteriorates, something happens that most doctors never actually discuss with their older patients. A person starts to feel like there's nothing ahead worth waiting for. They stop planning things. They stop chasing novelty. They stop reaching out to people. Some describe it as the world slowly turning gray. This isn't ordinary sadness. It has a name, anhedonia, the diminished ability to feel pleasure, and it's one of the strongest predictors of rapid. A long-running study following older adults for 2 decades found that those who reported a strong sense of purpose, essentially having things they genuinely looked forward to, were substantially less likely to develop Alzheimer's, and tended to live meaningfully longer than those who didn't, not just longer on paper, but longer in a way that involved actually living, not merely existing. What you can do about it is refreshingly simple. Deliberately put something on your calendar to look forward to every single week. It doesn't need to be extravagant. A restaurant you've never tried, a phone call with someone you love, a new book, a different route on your usual walk. Novelty acts almost like medicine for the brain, nudging dopamine release and encouraging new connections between neurons. Pair the S with real social engagement. Isolation has repeatedly been linked to a meaningfully higher risk of death in older adults, while strong social ties appear to actively protect the very dopamine receptors that keep you feeling motivated. If there's someone you've been meaning to call, do it today. That 5-minute conversation may do more for you than most things sitting in your medicine cabinet. Which brings us to the one sign I consider the true foundation underneath every single other item on this list. Can you get a genuinely restorative night of sleep and wake up actually feeling rested? I've saved this for last on purpose because without it, almost nothing else on this list holds up for long. Sleep isn't passive downtime. It's arguably the single most aggressive maintenance process your body runs, and it only happens while you're unconscious, deep in the later stages of the sleep cycle. During those deep stages, your brain activates something called the glymphatic system, essentially an overnight cleaning crew. Specialized channels open up and flush out waste products that build up in your neurons throughout the day. And one of the most important of those waste products is amyloid beta, the same protein that clumps together to form the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. Research has shown this cleaning process runs dramatically more actively during sleep than during waking hours, which means every night of poor sleep leaves your brain's overnight crew working at a fraction of its normal capacity, while the waste keeps accumulating. Unfortunately, reaching that deep, restorative stage of sleep gets noticeably harder as people move into their 70s. Research suggests older adults spend significantly less time in deep sleep compared to people in their 20s. Less deep sleep means less cleaning. Less cleaning means more buildup. More buildup is now considered one of the central mechanisms researchers point to when explaining accelerated cognitive decline. This isn't a fringe theory anymore. It's becoming one of the more widely accepted explanations for why sleep and dementia risk are so tightly linked. So, what can you actually do about it? Start by anchoring your wake time. Get up at the same time every single day, weekends included, because your circadian rhythm is heavily governed by morning light exposure. Step outside within 30 minutes of waking and let natural light hit your eyes directly. That single habit resets your melatonin cycle and makes it noticeably easier to reach deep sleep that night. Keep your bedroom cool, somewhere in the mid-60s Fahrenheit, since your core body temperature needs to drop to trigger deep sleep, and a cooler room speeds that process along. Some people find magnesium and glycine supplementation helpful for supporting deeper sleep stages, though it's always worth checking with your own doctor before adding anything new. And be honest with yourself about alcohol. It might feel relaxing in the moment, but it's one of the more reliable disruptors of both REM and deep sleep, even in modest amounts. I once treated a woman in her early 70s who hadn't slept through the night in 4 years. She was starting to lose words mid-sentence, her balance was slipping, and she was gaining weight despite eating carefully. We rebuilt her sleep from the ground up using exactly the approach I just described. Consistent wake time, morning light, a cooler bedroom, no alcohol near bedtime. Within 2 months, she was sleeping through the night. Within 6, the word-finding trouble had largely resolved, her balance improved, and she'd lost weight without changing her diet. Her story isn't rare, and I've watched it play out, in different forms, more times than I can count. Sleep isn't a luxury reserved for people with easy lives. It's the master process that determines whether every other healthy habit you build actually pays off. So step back for a second and look at everything we've just walked through. Rising off the floor, bouncing on one leg, walking without stopping, holding a conversation while moving, seeing clearly, remembering what you heard half an hour ago, still feeling pulled forward by anticipation, and sleeping deeply enough to wake up actually rested. None of these live in isolation. They're all connected threads of the same underlying story, and that story isn't really about age at all, it's about function. The real question was never how many birthdays you've had. It's how well your body and brain are actually operating today, because that answer, far more than any number on a calendar, determines what the years ahead will look like for you. If you can still do most or all of these 8 things, understand that you're not just healthy in some generic sense, you're operating in a category that's genuinely rare, and you should be proud of that, not modest about it. And if a few of these have started to slip, I want to be direct with you. It is not too late. The research is remarkably consistent on this point. The human body, even at 75, even at 80, retains a surprising, almost stubborn capacity to adapt, to rebuild, and to recover as long as you give it what it actually needs. Because independence isn't just a practical convenience, it's dignity. It's pouring your own cup of coffee in the morning. It's being the one who drives to see the people you love instead of waiting for them to come to you. It's looking in the mirror and recognizing the person looking back as someone who's still fully, vividly alive. That's worth protecting, and you're absolutely worth the effort it takes to protect it. If anything in this video gave you something useful today, a bit of hope, a piece of information you didn't have before, or simply a reminder that your body is still worth fighting for, subscribe and share this with someone in your life who's in this exact season of aging. Before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these 8 signs surprised you the most? And which one are you going to start working on this week? I read every comment, and honestly, that's the whole reason I keep making these. Take care of yourself. You've earned it.